Tonight, an exclusive for your eyes only, our all-action James Bond special. Thrill to the sights of Pierce Brosnan in action. Marvel at the stars revealing all. Be amazed at the legend of 007.
James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond. Bond. James Bond.
Bond. You know the rest.
And the rest is the world's most successful movie franchise ever. Tomorrow Never Dies marks the suave secret agent's 18th mission in 35 years, and it's business as usual. Tomorrow Never Dies is the follow-up to the triumph of GoldenEye, the most successful Bond film ever. Grossing $350 million worldwide, it earned more than both of Timothy Dalton's Bond films put together. Just when Bond looked ready to hand in his license to kill, the film put Bond back on top.
It was an extremely good film, and we're anticipating doing even better with this one.
But what was the secret of his rejuvenated success? For many, the answer was Brosnan, Pierce Brosnan.
I come to this role really as a fan, first and foremost, and then as an actor.
The part was made for him. He clearly has grown into the role and made it his own.
Brosnan has been instrumental in giving back to Bond the sense of fantasy and escapism that made him so popular in the 60s and 70s. In fact, he was such an obvious choice for the role that he was originally offered it before Dalton, but couldn't escape the clutches of the TV series Remington Steele.
I think the fans were a little concerned that Bond got a little too politically correct in the 70s and the 80s. They were crying for the old Bond back. They wanted Fleming's Bond. They wanted the rake. They wanted the hard-drinking guy. And I think by just taking him from the 60s and plopping him intact into the 90s, he becomes anachronistic, and so he stands out more. He becomes more of a vital character against the backdrop of political correctness. And I think that that's interesting.
Glad I insisted you brought that cello.
Timothy Dalton's Bond of the Living Daylights and A License to Kill had stripped 007 of the excesses of chauvinism and cheap one-liners. His style received a frosty reception from many critics. Not that Dalton should be written off as a bad Bond.
We've nothing to declare!
License to Kill changed because it made Bond much realer. I mean, Timothy Dalton, who played Bond then, was much more like Ian Fleming's Bond. In fact, the Bond aficionados who read the books and all that say that he was Ian Fleming's Bond.
I owe it to Leiter. He's put his life on the line for me many times.
Oh, spare me this sentimental rubbish.
The role has, of course, been played by 5 actors. Sean Connery first.
My friends call me Tanya.
Mine call me James Bond.
You're full of surprises, Contessa.
Then Australian George Lazenby, who held the 007 licence for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. While some believe him to be an underrated Bond, the film saw box office receipts fall by nearly 50%.
Sure of yourself, aren't you? Suppose I were to kill you for a thrill.
I could think of something more sociable to do.
With Lazenby out of the picture, next in the high-flying role was Roger Moore.
You want to get up?
And he made the most of those famous one-liners.
Roger Moore had great wit and charm.
But it's the 5th 007, Brosnan, who's already being talked of as one of the best.
When Pierce came back, I thought that was terrific. I thought he was the first great Bond since Connery. He manages to play it sort of more for real than Roger Moore did, but so it can be edgier, and at the same time he still has a sense of humour about himself. So it's not too serious. He can be witty about himself, and yet he's not poking fun at the whole thing. He makes it real, but he's sort of amused about himself, and he has an elegance and grace and self-deprecation. I think it's very appealing.
Along with the fans, even his Bond predecessors have been calling Pierce one of the best.
If Connery has said such a thing, and Roger certainly has, and I know Sean actually has spoken up. Last time, after GoldenEye, he was very complimentary. No, that warms the cockles of my heart, for heaven's sake.
He was even honoured recently as the first Bond star to be given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In fact, things are going so well for Pierce right now that he's even managed to win over his harshest critic, his son.
Well, initially, I think Sean was a bit kind of shy of the whole thing. I don't think he thought it was too cool. But now as he's gotten a little older and, you know, he's 14 and girls in his life and stuff like this, he thinks it's cool.
Altogether, it's a good time to go to the boss and ask for a pay rise, which is exactly what he's done. Reportedly paid a mere $3 million for this film, he's asking for a celebrity-sized $7 million for the next.
Oh, God, let's not talk money. Please.
But you would be interested, certainly, in doing another one?
Oh, I'm contracted to do another one, sure. They don't just get you signed on the line for one. They got me to sign on the line for 3 with the option of a 4th, so that if I was any good, they think they might have me by the short and curlies, but...
Yup, spoken like a true Bond. And if he gambles as well as James, he should get his money. After all, Brosnan does hold a trump card. Tomorrow Never Dies looks set to cement his reputation.
I thought he was back when Brosnan did the first one, and I think with this he's definitely as good as he's ever been.
I think the perfect modern Bond for today is Pierce Brosnan. I can't think of anyone who would be any more perfect today.
I think he's fantastic, and he's gorgeous. Is he here?
Tomorrow Never Dies pits Bond against the latest in an infamous line of arch-villains. Elliot Carver, played by Jonathan Pryce.
I took 100 million francs from the French to keep the stories running for another year.
I suppose in the past I've always had a hankering, secret hankering that I could play a Bond villain. And I'm glad they waited until it was a character as good and as richly perceived as Elliot Carver.
He's a media mogul whose newspaper and cable TV empire makes Rupert Murdoch's News International look like a local paper round.
There's no news like bad news.
Carver, knowing that bad news is good for business, decides that a well-timed war is what he needs to boost his latest TV launch. So he sets out to start one.
The British will think the Chinese are being belligerent, and the media will provide cool, objective coverage. Let the mayhem begin.
When I saw that it was a chance to say something about the media and the dangers of the media, I went for it.
Mr. Wallace, call the president.
It's very real when Carver says call the president, because these people do have the ear of the heads of government and prime ministers and presidents, and they can influence the way people think. And like I said before, it's very dangerous that one person decides that.
And after he signs the bill, release the tape anyway.
Consider him slimed.
Like all Bond villains, Carver has the futuristic headquarters and the henchman who can't shoot straight. All he lacks is a silly name. Compared to Dr. No, Goldfinger, Ernst Stavro Blofeld and Scaramanga, Elliot Carver is almost as bland as, well, James Bond. Incidentally, Ian Fleming took the name James Bond from the author of one of his favourite books, Birds of the West Indies. But it's not just the bad guys. Equally famous are the Bond girls. Ever since Ursula Andress emerged from the Caribbean onto a postcard-perfect beach in Dr. No, James Bond has had his way with the women. One of his most famous conquests was Pussy Galore in Goldfinger, played by Honor Blackman. For her, Bond's sexual prowess is as important as the action sequences in the film's success.
I think it's the macho man. Harry Saltzman once said, when people go to see a Bond picture, the men coming out walking tall, and the women just want Bond. So it's always going to be attractive, I think.
In Tomorrow Never Dies, Terry Hatcher, who's already stolen the heart of Superman on TV, finds that it's not so easy with Bond to keep your man.
Was it something I said?
How about the words, "I'll be right back"?
She plays the classic Bond girl, unable to resist the rakish charms of James, even if it means risking her life. The only difference in this film, though, is that her character, Paris, had years before managed to sneak inside Bond's cool exterior and steal his heart.